Hello, everyone. By the time this episode is up on the podcast, it's been 2 months of within the new year of 2026. And on this day precisely, we have mourned the passing of my brother. Earlier in late January, my brother, my one only brother, Arjenti Harris, passed away. And at that moment, I feel like this episode should be dedicated to him because I want to talk about him. Because I know this is a very somber episode, but I want to take this to lightly because I want to take this very serious because of the fact that this is something that is hard for me. There may be days that you might notice emotionally I'm distraught. There may be moments within these days going on that it will be hard on me emotionally, mentally. There even may be moments where I will have a lot of damaging situations where it's hard for me to keep going. But if you are a friend or a colleague of mine that truly cares, you will understand after listening to this podcast why this is going to be hard for me while I'm still here. But I assure you, the one thing that won't change will be my existence because I'm going to do this for him. And everything these next few years, no matter how long it will be, I will be happily doing it in his honor. My brother was born on April 28, 1986 in California, 2 years after I was born. My parents said that he was a large kid. At times, my brother and I, when we were younger, we bonded a lot. He was the only person who had my back a lot of times. There were moments where he was a stool pigeon. Whenever I did anything bad or anything wrong, he would rat me out. But it was a good reason. It was for good reason. Because he was trying to be the noble child. When I was around 5 or 6 years old, I didn't talk much because of my introvertness, my social anxiety. And at the time, I was not diagnosed with my autism and ADHD. So I was considered the strange child. But my brother, being as ever loyal as he was my translator. I would mumble a lot of times. My parents would tell me, and he would translate for me. Tell my parents with his loud bravado of what I wanted or what I was asking for or what I was saying. There are moments where my parents didn't understand what I wanted or what I was asking for or what I said, and my brother would have to tell them. He was more like my translator. If there was a best analogy, it's the Key and Peele Barack Obama translator. My brother uh, uh, was Keegan. I was Jordan because I didn't talk much or I didn't speak loud enough that they could hear me. My brother was my translator for me, and it was times where my parents would laugh and my family would laugh. But the funny thing about it is the fact that he was willing to do that to look out for me. There are many moments where I would be protective for him when I was little because he was the little kid. Perfect example is years ago, we used to live in an apartment complex called McCord Woods in Toledo. It's now changed to something else, and it's split off into separate concepts. There was a kid named Adam Golddecker. He had a brother, a younger brother, 2 years younger than him. I believe his name was Bart. Adam would be my bully. Bart would be my brother's bully. The crazy thing is the fact that both of these boys would dedicate themselves to bullying me and my brother. And me and my brother, we would have to hold each other down to go after these white boys. In the next few coming months, such as we got older, we were unfortunate with the fact of things changed for us. But when we were younger, well around the time we were at least 12 or 13 ages, there were moments where my mother, unfortunately, started dressing us alike. We would wear the same shirts, the same jerseys, the same sweaters. Anything I wore, my brother would wear. It wasn't until later elementary school we started wanting to have our own distinct features of our own looks because we got sick and tired of it. But it was very distinct to know that we were brothers because we would wear similar outfits. Like one of the outfits I remember particularly was this orange shorts and tank top set from Chicago Bulls. Then there was this red Cincinnati Bengals sweater that we both would wear. And then there were moments where we would wear Bugle Boy jeans and polo shirts. And people were like, "Are you guys twins?" And we would both say synonymously together, "No, we're 2 years apart. We're 2 years apart. We're 2 years apart." Yet people thought we were twins. It wasn't until I realized the fact there was a such thing as fraternal twins, not identical twins, but we were not. Either way, regardless, we were 2 years apart from born of each other. So there's no reason of that. There were moments where my brother was in preschool, I was in second grade. And his class would be right next to mine at Doyle Elementary. I would walk around, see him while I would go to lunch, and I would see him playing with the kids, or sometimes he's by himself. When I got older, I went to a special school called Westside Montessori. When it was tested that I was gifted, it was hard for me to adapt and socialize with other kids because I didn't have my brother with me. And it wasn't until I think a year later they decided to put me back into an elementary school with my brother. And by that time, my brother was in second, third grade, and I was in fourth, fifth grade, I think it was. Um, it was hard for me to socialize then, but my brother was getting better. He was better at being social with more people. He started gaining friends. I didn't have many, but at least he was happy. But once we got to the older age of middle school time and we moved to California, we went to a school called St. Elizabeth Seton in Palo Alto. My brother was in sixth grade, seventh grade. I was in seventh and eighth grades. His teacher uh, had connections to artists in California, Burbank, California, who at the time was working for Pixar. My brother at the time started developing a skill of drawing. His sketch work was starting to get a lot of attention. My dad, who also was an artist, a designer and something because he was also an engineer, had the gift of art as well. And him and my brother would have a lot of connection together because of their sketch work. It wasn't until my eighth grade year I started getting the development of art design myself. Um, to the point where both me and my brother would put pictures and drawings that we did of our own along the walls in our bedroom. I remember there was a year when we both would walk to in Fremont. We lived in Fremont. We would walk to a store called Food for Less, and they would have this sale where it's like for $2 you can get almost a 3-pound bag of gummy worms. And me and my brother asked my mother, begged my mother, can we get some? And we and him would walk about 4 blocks from our apartment in Fremont all the way to that Food for Less store just for a 2 to 3 pound bag of gummy worms that we would take home and just snack on. There were moments where I remember my dad did this one thing when we were living in Mountain View, California, while we were still in middle school. My dad did this thing where my mom was working or in classes a lot, so she wasn't at home. My dad did this little video reel. I wish we had it, but we lost it. My dad did this amazing thing because how cool talented he was. He would draw us T-shirts of the Warner Brothers because he saw us as the Warner Brothers. My sister, my young sister Michaela was Dot. My brother was Wacko, and I was Yakko. So we will all have our own shirts. And there were moments where my dad said, "You all get to pick one song, and each of us are going to sing that song. You all three are going to sing each songs." So we picked 3 songs. Um, my sister picked Monica's "Before You Walk Into My Life." My brother would pick Joe's "The Things Your Man Won't Do," and I picked a song called "Do You Want Me to Put It" from I believe a band called uh, Solo, which was more like an R&B jazz type of band. Um, Solo, I believe, was the name of the band. It was like a three. It was a three-set band. There was 2 vocalists and one who was a bass player and vocal bass player. and I'm pretty sure that was the band. Yeah, it was an R&B band from New York. Oh, it's four members. I'm looking it up now. It's four members, and they had a song. They did a cover. They got famous because they did a cover of a Sam Cooke record called "What a Wonderful World," and "Cupid." Two Sam Cooke covers. Um, "Where Do You Want Me to Put It" was the name of the song. Can you tell me where do you want me to put it? This was early 95, 96. This was before, a year before the unfortunate passing of Tupac Shakur and Notorious B.I.G. My brother, my dad would film us a music video for all of us in the bedroom and in the living room where there was no furniture in Mountain Dew, and we would sing these songs. My dad would film us. Me and my brother would be the background singer, and my sister would be the singer. My sister and my brother would be the background singers, and I would be the vocal singers. Each turn, my dad would film all of us, so he could film it and show it to my mom, and she loved it. When we were in middle school, there were moments where I remember there were moments that his it was that moment when he was in middle school his growth spurt started happening. He got a lot taller than me. I was envious of that. He was at least an inch higher than me, a little bit. He gained a little bit more pounds. He was built like almost even built like a Lamberger within the seventh and eighth grade, no less. While he was at St. Charles, um, I remember uh, at one point when we were in here in Ohio, when my brother went to St. Elizabeth, I was at when he went to St. Charles Middle School. I was a freshman at St. John's Jesuit, and it wasn't until we both were able to go back to school together again when he graduated, and he was given a freshman scholarship for St. Francis de Sales, which is just a block where I'm at right now. Um, when he would go there, I was there for my sophomore year. My academia wasn't as good, but I at least was passable. I would have had to repeat a year. My brother, however, was unfortunately not able to pass. And because of that, the school had rejected him to return. But they had offered me a return, so long as I had to repeat a year. I told myself I loved my brother too much that I would not do that to him. Every time I kept going to a different school than him, it was already bad enough, and I hated that that had to happen. I didn't want to have to do that. So I said to myself, from now on, me and him are going to stick it out. And so that's what I did. I rejected the offer, and I went to public school with him. We both ended up going to Bowser. While he didn't get to finish his school year at Bowser, he ended up having to go to a summer school because one of his classes, they didn't pass him in. He had to make it up for it in summer school before he graduated. So he never got to walk properly with cap and gown. I did after graduating from Bowser. But something did happen for him over me. Three things. He would get his first job working as a caterer for my aunt Tia at a company called Gladios that my aunt was a manager for. He would also get his early license, so he was able to drive, but unfortunately more than I would. And last but not least, he was able to find love. His beautiful wife Rebecca, he had a loving marriage of over more than 10 years. He met his girlfriend at a Walgreens supermarket. Uh, with my father was a frequent customer there when he was transitioning from jobs. My father and hooked him up with Rebecca and him. Felt they were a good couple. Funny enough, Rebecca at the time I knew briefly because she was dating a previous guy, a friend of mine, mutual friends, who was taking art classes with me. My brother was the only wedding I ever attended in my entire life. I had been invited about 4 or 5 times to weddings, could never attend them because of circumstances. There was one I wanted to attend, but I was in Florida working. There was another moment I could, but at the time I was unfortunately not in town. Um, and then there was another one that I wanted to go to, but unfortunately I was working and I couldn't call off within that week. But my brother's wedding, I said to myself, I'm going to attend And not only am I going to attend, I already nominate myself to be his best man and the ring bearer. And I did a damn thing with that. It's the first time I ever wore a tuxedo, too. My brother and his wife took amazing pictures over at the Toledo Museum of Art. My sister-in-law in her beautiful gown, my brother sharp in a three-piece suit. We smoking cigars, celebrating his unity with her. And while they went through ups and downs, ones that I will not, out of respect of privacy, will not delve into, they still committed themselves. There were 2 or 3 faults where separation, temporary separation was necessary, and I consoled to him every time, had his back every time. And I told him every time, things will get better. The first time he dealt with a temporary breakup when he was still dating her, the first thing he did was he came out of his car, walked up to the driveway, embraced me, and cried in my arms. And I told him, "You're stronger for this. You will get stronger regardless of this." While he got stronger, they ended up mending faces, him and his wife, which led to, of course, their wedding. And again, then came the process of him deciding to have a family. At one point, while they were having a family, they tried to relocate to Arizona. Didn't work. But when me and my mother did, I told my brother, if there's any opportunities I'm going to take here, that's fine. I remember distinctively, and this is a vital point for me too, my brother had a Nokia DSLR. First time ever that I ever saw a DSLR was that camera. He had it, never used it. I told him I wanted to borrow it, but at that same moment I was borrowing that camera when I was living with my mom after the divorce. Me and my mother had a rough patch in a situation. And I told him, I'm sorry that I'm going through this right now, because at the time, he no longer was talking to my mother. I told him, I said, I need to sort things on my own. I lived with a friend of mine, and I didn't have much to pack. So at the time, I decided I was able to possess his camera before anything else. My mother and I had a rough patch of a situation, and my brother was able to help me. He took me to a friend's place. I had his camera in possession. I practiced with that camera, and within the few weeks, I started making use of the camera. Practicing. Those would be the moments that would lead into my future development in photography. Had it not been for those moments, I never would have done that. And this is before my trip to Arizona, my living space of Arizona. My brother was humble about it. And I told him at one point, maybe you should learn to do photography once I started getting to it. Once I possessed my own camera, I offered. He insisted not to. He didn't want to. He rather taken pictures of landscapes, aerial things, nature. And I said, that's fine. But I think you might have a knack for it. I pestered him a lot about it. I won't lie. But he insisted. I remember there was moments where when we were younger, we used to share a bed together, a bunk bed together. His bunk bed would be on the bottom. Mine would be on the top. There was an unfortunate moment where a plank that was fencing over me on my bed, the screw was unfortunately shorted out. So it swiveled. So any moment, if I rolled over, I could easily fall off the bed. So I had to be careful. But I would always do that and lean it over when it came to talking to him on the bed while he was under the bed. We would sit there, watch wrestling together. Saturday night's main event. Macho Man versus Hulk Hogan when the Mega Powers were, when the Mega Warriors were no longer together. Macho Man versus Hulk Hogan when it was that situation of their rivalry with Miss Elizabeth. He would always be a Macho Man fan. Always. I would always be a Hogan fan. And I regret it, though, as the years gone by. And when Macho Man passed, he distanced himself from it. But then he was a fan of The Rock, while I was a fan of wrestlers like, at one point, Goldberg. And I regretted that one, too. But when CM Punk came into the picture, he knew that changed everything for me. But slowly he started disillusioning himself from professional wrestling. I kept towards it, but I kept them updated on times. whenever Christmas hang around, I would remember it was always the thing with us who would be the Ninja Turtles fans. My brother was a fan of Donnie. He was the one who was the fan of the nerd. I wasn't a fan of Donnie because I distanced myself from not wanting to be the nerd. At that time when I was younger, I was ashamed of being a nerd. I'm not going to lie. I embrace it now. From the last several years, I've embraced it now. I've worn it like a badge of pride now. But at one point, I was ashamed of being a nerd. So I gravitated away from Donatello, unlike the rest of the world, who would be more of a Donatello fan. And looking back now, I do see many qualities of Donatello that I prefer myself. But my brother was more of a Donatello fan. He attached himself immediately to Donatello. And the hothead Raphael, which a lot of people also would expect me to be a fan of because, well, my name, real name, somehow, sometimes is associated with that name. But my brother was more of the Raph fan. I was Mikey and Lito. Every Christmas, when my parents would get Christmas toys for us, he would get Raphael and Donatello. I would get Michelangelo and Leonardo. I remember one of the times where my mother, Kmart, when they were still in business, had an Olin Mills studio. My mother did this creative thing in California where she bought at a sports store replica jerseys, basketball jerseys, expensive Reebok sneakers. I believe they were Penny Hardaways, and some replica and some professional made basketballs. She would rent those for us, had us keep the tags on, but hide them, and wore them to a photo shoot at an Olin Mills studio because she wanted photos of both me and my brother in basketball jerseys. My brother wore the Charlotte Hornets because that was his team at the time before it transitioned over to the Phoenix Suns and then many other teams. I was a Bulls guy, but at one moment I was a fan of Orlando Magic. So I wore a Magic jersey. Both of us in our thick rimmed glasses, in basketball sneakers that were too big for us, and jerseys that were way too large for us. And we would wear those with basketballs on. It's like we took professional basketball, NBA professional photos, and we got those pictures framed at one point for my mom. And then when we were done with the shoot, my mother would take those back and get a refund. And then there was the moment before that. I told people this story before, and I've said this before. When it came to loving our favorite superheroes, my brother's first moment I knew he loved Superman was the same moment I loved the Batman. It was a Christmas season at a Hills department store here in Ohio, and my mother was buying us winter clothes, and there was a bin for comic books over on the side. Were for $5, and me and my brother begged my mom, could we get some of these? And she's like, as long as you and your brother share, you get 2 each. My brother got 2 books from Superman, and I got 2 books with Batman. One of those books I do remember was a book which featured Rampage, where my brother got a book from Rampage. It was Superman number 24, Rampage Round 2, from 1988. Sturm, Gamil, and Beatty. I'm looking at now. That was the book that my brother had that made him a fan of Superman. If I can pull it up here, if you're watching the visual, this would be the book that my brother would be a fan of, right here. This was the book. The first time ever that I saw my brother was a Superman fan was in this book. From the moment he read this, and the first page, if I'm correct, shows Batman in Clark's office talking to Clark about a mysterious power that came to his planet in his city. And Clark's like, listen, I'll handle it, but don't come in here without any permission again. It was this issue, and there was an issue with the white Banshee. Both of those were the first time ever that I saw my brother lock the fuck in for the Man of Steel. Now, as for me, the first time that I knew I was a fan of Batman was during the Harpy Batman issue, which is issue 481, Messenger of Zeus, and 482. This was the book that got me to be a fan of Batman. Doug Munch, Jim Paparo. Zeus was locked up, and his one of his associates, a woman who was working for him at his nightclub, was telling her that he saw a premonition that he would be betrayed to fulfill his memory and stop the situation. Zeus's goons were planning to betray Zeus and have a mutiny. She saw it, got attacked, but then got hit in the head. And like Zeus, her memory got destroyed till she took on the identity of the Harpy. This was the book, along with Batman Returns, that made me a fan. Both me and my brother owned these books. And the moment that we both owned these books, we were locked in for our heroes. Him, the Man of Steel, me, the Dark Knight. We went home and we held those books to our content daily. And time after time, my brother and I would have conflicts of our favorite superheroes till we mocked each other many times about it. We would say about whose movie's better, whose show's better, whose game's better. We would end up doing that for music later. He was always a Jay-Z fan. When my dad owned In My Lifetime Volume 1, my brother stole it and listened to it non-stop, front to back. My father would buy it was written, I Stole That, from Nas, of Nas. And we were always rivals for Nas and Jay-Z. We would unite, though, for Tupac and Biggie. When the Nas and Jay-Z beef happened, we kept taunting each other about it, whose album was better. He would tell me The Blueprint was better. I would tell him Stillmatic was better. But then slowly we would migrate to liking each other's music. Now, I can't say he was a fan of all of Nas's stuff, but I can say there were some Jay-Z records I did like. Not enough to buy a Jay-Z album, even though I bought 2 of them and gave them to him. The only album I own of Jay-Z's is Reasonable Doubt. It's the only album that I will ever own of Jay-Z's. But other than that, he was always the Nas fan. He was always the Jay-Z fan. I was the Nas fan. Anything Rockefeller, he would automatically attach to. At one moment, I remember when we were go both with St. Francis together, we got a side job to pay for our intuition. And it was basically working in the cafeteria for the staff's lounge, the faculty lounge. We would clean, wipe up the stuff. We would clean in the area, do a lot of cleaning, washing dishes, stocking food, pre-stocking food. We would do all that. He would do that certain days until he started football practice. He would play for freshman football for a brief while. He was a linebacker. He hated playing because it was always the routines. But my father insisted on him doing so because he had the built to pull off to be a football player and attend his shows. Me, I wanted to get into basketball, but my father insisted I focused on my studies and not sports. But the funny part is his coach was also my biology teacher. And my teacher would come to him and ask me at times like, why is your brother not putting in the work? I'm like, I don't know. However, that would go vice versa when we both would attend Bowser. When many students that I had social awkwardness who had classes with my brother would ask why I am weird when I'm trying to socialize, not realizing my autism was at play and my social anxiety was at play. He would tell me, stop talking with everybody. You're being weird. You're being embarrassing me. You're being weird. I would be ashamed, but then at the same time, I'm like, listen, I'm going to be weird no matter what. There were many moments we had conflicts with each other. My brother would always insist on the fact that things, when it come to us arguing with each other when we were younger, that we would fight and wrestle. There were moments where he had the upper hand and I had the upper hand. The one time I had the upper hand, and let me also tell you, preface it, we were brutal fighting men. We were like fighting like strictly hardcore, to the point where my parents were like, "Dude, let him fight," until it gets to a certain point. We had to stop. For me, it was something simple as taking a yo-yo and strangling him around the neck with it. and my mother had to pull me off of him. But then he would have the advantage later when we were in high school and moved to Swanton. He would almost slam me on a table, on the kitchen table, but then put me in a sleeper hold till I almost passed out. And after that moment, I said to myself, I'm never fighting him again. But then after we were done fighting, slowly it would come to us making up. We would end up being civil again. We would end up bonding again. It's what brothers do. We fight, we argue, we laugh together, we make jokes to each other, but we would have each other's back. There were moments I did things wrong in school. When I was not doing well in classes, and my parents would be mad at me to the point they would throw away my items, CDs, books. My brother would slowly go out and pick those out and bring them to me. I remember the one time my parents threw half of my CDs away, including a copy of my first copy of Stillmatic. And my brother went out to pick it out from the garbage and give it to me and say, you owe me for this, but it's you. I remember at one moment, he was a fan of Dragon Ball Z like I was. Our first time bonding with anime was Dragon Ball Z. He would insist that I didn't get him into Dragon Ball Z, but I did, because when it first aired, Bandai owned the rights to the show, and they would syndicate air it. It was during the first episode of the Saiyan Saga, where Raditz is fighting Goku. Vegeta was not even in the picture. Goku was holding Raditz's tail. Piccolo had one arm, was about to use his beam, and he just needed to charge it. And Raditz was holding his tail, and Raditz was slowly trying to convince Goku, don't do it, we're brothers, I'm so sorry, trying to swoon him over. I remember that episode from the back of my freaking head. And I told my brother when we were in Chicago with my aunt, we would tell my Aunt Daisy, what is this show? My brother, I told him, look, watch this. This thing is so cool. But he insisted years later, you never got me into Dragon Ball Z. I got into Dragon Ball Z. And I insisted, no, I remember, I got you into that show. And for years, he would always get mad at me and always argue with me because he never thought that I was the one that got him into it. And I insisted I did. We would always argue about it. It was the one thing we carried over for 30 years. And I told him all the time, like, I remember you getting into it. I'm going to tell you all the time, I got you into Dragon Ball Z. His favorite character was Piccolo. The one character he was, but at the same time, I was a fan of Vegeta. So when I went to see Chris Sabat, I told him, I said, I'll get you his autograph for one of your comics. And I told Chris Sabat that the year I went to OhioCon, I said, can you sign this for my brother? He can't make it because he's busy with life. He can't make it to the con, but he loves you. He loves your character. And I know you get it a lot of times, Chris. I know you do. Because Lord have mercy, I know he's gotten a lot of times he's had people say Piccolo and Vegeta are always those favorite characters. But the one moment I had to bring it to him attention on the fact of my brother loved this character. He loves these books. And he had it signed by Sabat. And he was so happy when I told him that. I said, this is for you. I get this for you. I did the same thing at New York Comic Con. I brought things home for him to say for him. He would get mad because he's like, I didn't get to go to these things. I never went to experience these things. But at the same time, he always did. But he was always happy, but a little jealous. And he said, someday I'm going to take my son to Comic-Con. We're going to dress as the Mandalorian and Grogu. He was working on a project where he was going to work on the Mandalorian's armor. And he was working on the costume for his son, who wanted to either be Grogu or a Sith. He had everything prepared for it. He just never had the time because life and health. Whether it's helping my mom like I was or his family, he didn't have the money. His last mission was going to be a film director. He wanted to get into film. He wanted to make his own horror movie studio. He wanted to have his own Blumhouse. And the plan was he was going to go to California, take classes for directing and filmmaking, and then at the same time start production and screenwriting for a film of his own. And when I had the process for my screenplay, which I'm still working on, which is DVL, he laughed and said, "Oh, you want to make a horror movie now? You're the horror guy who never liked horror movies." And he's right. He's absolutely right. I am not the horror fan. When it comes to spooky, funny, spooky horror stuff of it, in the lighter sense of it, I'm very much sensitive. I won't lie. I'm the worst of a goth alternate person, because you see most goth punks and alternative people, they are horror movie nuts. They love slashers. Anything that shows decapitation, mutilation, jump scares, it's awesome. I have a weak stomach. I can't handle somebody getting their head split in two. I can't see somebody having their chest penetrated by a sharp object. I hate to see someone slowly shredded from the inside out. It weakens my stomach. And I hate even worse when something jumps out of nowhere and the music changes on an instant. My anxiety loses its nuts. And my brother made fun of me a lot of times for it, but I let him, because it was what made him happy. Horror movies was his life. He loved horror movies. My roommate and him would have been close friends if given under the circumstances, because of the fact that my roommate, who is a horror movie lover, is just as much as my brother. Everything from Sinners to Michael Myers to Jason, all of them. My brother once wanted to put together a project where he wanted to make each prop and mask for each horror movie character. One with Jason, Michael Myers, Leatherface, Freddy Krueger. He wanted them all like in a mannequin in a display. That was his plan. We talked about comic books and stuff. I remember the first time we went to a movie together, see a movie together, was my cousin Terrence, who got us into comic books. The two times we went to see a movie together was Batman and Robin, and the first film of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We went to see those together. My cousin Terrence took us to see it in the old Spring Meadows Theater that used to exist in California, Toledo. Um, I think the old theater that used to be at near the Franklin Park Mall. So the cinema, yeah. So it was the cinema near Franklin Park Mall, the last mall in Toledo had a cinema 123. So near the Franklin Park Mall area, there was a theater that used to be around the area near where is now hotels, and there's two hotels. There's a plaza that is the Fuzion sushi bar. The There's a plaza where the Better Health and Smoke House, the Scramblers restaurant, the Zeta's Mediterranean, the Tony Pacos, and there was also there's another area where there was a Toledo. It used to be great. What's it called? Come on, Raphael. Hold on, Donnie. You can think of what is it called? That's owned by Amazon. Oh, I'm not going to remember it for the life of me. Uh, um, uh, Whole Foods. Jesus, my memories of my locking in is really bad. I apologize. But over in that area where it used to be a Whole Foods and such, used to be a theater called the Cinema 123, I believe it was called. And it was a theater. It was one of the most recognized theaters in Toledo. I at least know that. Very established, iconic location. It was shut down, torn down, and turned into a whole plaza. My cousin Terrence, one time, brought me and my brother to that theater to see to see the opening week of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie, and we went there to see that theater. And in that theater, we went to see the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. And here's the theater right here. And in that plaza where that theater is, we went to go see the Ninja Turtles. Me, him, and my brother. And that cinema, I remember we had these Ninja Turtle pies. We had these snack pies, turtle pies, with vanilla pudding inside. We ate these, like 2 or 3 of these, while we were going to see the Ninja Turtles movie. We would snack on these while we would go to see the Ninja Turtles movies. That was one of my favorite memories growing up when we went to see these. Um, it was one of the main things that I remember growing up watching of it. Um, we would we would snack on those. We had like 4 of them each while my cousin Terrence was watching with us, and we watched the movie. We go up there, watch every moment of it, and we were just bewildered. The second time that happened was in Chicago. We went to the Chicago cinema, saw the Batman and Robin film, and while it wasn't the best thing, my cousin took us back to his place. My cousin would have a room where he would have all in his bedroom, a room stacked of comic books. There was an X-Men book that had the Executioner in it. My brother saw that book with me, and we were reading those comics. At the same time, my cousin would play the Terminator film, the first 1980s Terminator film with Arnold Schwarzenegger. We would watch that. Uh, and my brother and I would be on the couch together in the living room, sleeping. The house was a complete mess. It looked like it was almost abandoned at one point because there were plants coming out the ground. The place was not in good shape of it. There was a lot of cold draft. But it was a home for my cousin, because he was going through hard times with it. But after that, we didn't hang out much of it since when we started getting older, after high school and college. When I was dating my ex, my brother did whatever he could to help me get to her whenever it came to where she lived at. He would drive me over to her place while he would go see his wife. He supported my relationship. He supported when I was dealing with it. However, there were moments he would be mad at me. Another moment he got mad at me was Thanksgiving 2 years ago. He was supposed to pick me up while he went to go take me over to his place where my mom was waiting and everyone else was waiting. We got into an argument, and he was embarrassed because we had to go pick up some side dishes because we had soon assumed that my cousin Von Shea and her family had side dishes for us, but she had told us our mom never gave us the ingredients. She was like, I can make it, but your mom never gave us the ingredients, so we don't have anything. So we were empty-handed. And at one moment, they were watching sports on the big TV, and Michael Strahan was up there in gap tooth glory. My brother had a bad gap tooth because when he was in junior high, younger, we were having a race in the parking lot, and we were skateboarding, and my brother slammed his head on the pavement, broke 2 teeth, both his front teeth. So he had to get veneers on both of them, but they were very badly done to the point he had a huge gap. So many times people would make jokes on him, calling him SpongeBob SquarePants with his 2 teeth. But at the time, too, when he got younger, he gravitated toward a character named Goofy. That Goofy. And so Goofy, that became his favorite character. I remember when I worked at Disney, I brought home a Goofy doll. There was this, if you go to Disney World, um, there was a ride on Epcot called Test Track, where it was experiencing like you were driving onto uh, a race track with a car ride. One of the dolls I remember I got him was a Goofy doll that was there that they had at the test track, and it was this Goofy that I remember I got for him, which was shaped like a crash test dummy. This was my one gift for him. He was so happy when I got it for him. Yeah, this was at the test. You could buy this at the test track ride at the merch shop. I said it looks so cool. It's a crash test dummy version of Goofy, which is appropriate. He would he would laugh about it. He's like, "Why is Goofy a test track dog customer?" I'm like, "We used to like crash test dummies around here. We used to have the toys and stuff. We used to say the cuz look at your safety belt and such." And he would laugh. He was like, "I can't believe you got this." But yeah, uh, I remember I got that for him. But he was so happy. Any Goofy stuff I was able to bring back to him, he was so happy about. At one point, the plan was supposed to have him come to Disney with the rest of my family. Unfortunately, because he wanted to commit with his relationship instead of coming to see us, and a lot of other situations happened, they never got to come. And I felt bad because I was like, I tried my best so hard, and I got mad at him for that. I got so mad at him because I said, "Why is it that you couldn't take the time to come to Florida with me and you and the kids? This would have been perfect for you and the kids to come." But he insisted that he didn't say anything. My mom told him like that's what he wanted. I got mad at him for that, and I regret it. There were moments where uh, at one point, he was when we were dressed for Halloween. My brother, he would always dress in different characters of it, and I will only dress as one character, but he would always defend the reasons why because he knew I liked Batman. I was Batman for 3 years in a row for Halloween, to 1 year, and then he was like, "Well, that's his favorite character. Of course, that's his favorite superhero." Hell, I remember when we were younger, we would get up in the morning, watch Reading Rainbow together, then would play our Sega Genesis and fight each other on Street Fighter 2. He would always beat me. Even if my main was M. Bison, he would always beat me, and I got mad at him for it time after time. I'm like, "Why you always beat me?" He was the only one who could beat me in fighting games. The only one. I will give him that acknowledgement. He always whipped my ass. It was worse in Mortal Kombat, which was his favorite fighting game series. I was the Street Fighter guy, he was the Mortal Kombat guy. But I gravitated a lot more to Mortal Kombat over the years because I loved the characters and it was my way of connecting with him. So much that when I bought Mortal Kombat 11, he got jealous. I will give him one nickname in the anime sense of it. Funny enough, when I talk about anime again, I will say he did get me into Tenchi Muyo. When I was still in high school, he came home. He said, "I was at the library and I saw this book and I think you might like it." And it was the first copy issue of the No Need for Tenchi manga that was released by Viz years ago. And I said, "Okay, I'll look into it." I read it front to back and I could not let it go. I held on to that thing with a kung fu grip. And the moment I had to return it, it hurt. And I said, I needed more. I wanted to read more in this. These characters are amazing. He knew I loved Tenchi. I won't give him that. I will give him that recognition as well. If it wasn't for my brother Arjenti, I would never be the Tenchi Muyo fan I am today. I will give him that satisfaction now. His father, my nephews, I will tell them their father got me into one of the greatest anime in my life. The anime that gave me the pen name of Yoku Masaki, the name of my company, of my photography, Jirai Media, which is why I love Tenchi. I will give my brother that validation. I will give him that acknowledgement. He is responsible for me loving Tenchi. Once I took that book back a month later, Toonami announced the premiere of Tenchi Muyo, the anime, and I watched every episode front to back. When he met my friend Dason, him and I, years later, Dason knew his wife. We all went to high school together, obviously. So when my brother and his wife got married, I didn't have a plus one, so I just said I'll bring my friend Dason. He's the only one I can trust on that. He came with me. My brother was happy. He was like, "Oh yeah, you and Rebecca know each other. That's cool." He would always show up. He showed up at the wedding, tried to play it off like he's cool, like Michael Jackson with his fedora hat and such. I always told people he was trying to be Neo. Dason was trying to be Neo. He was smooth as hell. It was hilarious. Uh, but my brother was happy from there. One of his friends was a girl I liked named Carly. Gorgeous, fine for a white girl. Unfortunately, we had a path falling out. But at most times, I know me and my brother would hang out with her because we would do a little gardening, if I can just say. Hell, it's my platform. We were getting high together. Well, I won't lie. It's the one thing that many times that we would did together. We would get high together. When I was questioning my sexuality, my brother opened up about his sexuality to mom. The same year I was. I had told my mother I was bi-curious when my brother was committed to his bisexuality. And my mom still loved us regardless. My father, on the other hand, I can't really say the same. My my mom later on would tell me at times where my brother would do stuff for us, for me, in honor, and I hated the fact that there were certain things my brother would do for me that I told him, you don't have to do that for me. You don't. But he insisted because that's what brothers do. When my brother was picked on by a group of kids in our complex, I wanted to go manic on them. He had to calm me down. When he got into arguments with his wife, I had to help mediate to calm them both down. But I told him, like, your love with that woman should not come to the point where you two are rifting each other. When I met his friend Carl and him lived in his own place, I spent the week with him. We would look on the internet, watch stuff together, watch certain anime together, TV shows together. It was the one time my mother told me and insisted at time to time, whenever me and my brother would have a falling out, she would tell me, talk to your brother. He's the only brother you have left. Talk to him. It would be different with my father because my brother and me both had moments where we both did not like our father. We both had disrespect. We both were disrespected from my father. But between each other, my mother insisted I try to make it work with my brother. My one regret was I wish I had talked to him more because I won't lie. There were moments where I did not talk to him and I did not want to talk to him because he would do things that would furious me. When I got older and I gained more accepting into my disability, I was very open about it. And my brother unfortunately was raised in the same mentality like my father, where he did not understand the complications of my disability. So much that I felt like he was treating me no different than my dad. So I didn't want to talk to him. And my mother insisted time to time, talk to your brother. He just wants to ask you some stuff. He wants to borrow money from you sometimes. Just do that. The last time he would borrow money from me was just this earlier last month. He needed money for his kids for food stamps because his job wasn't giving him enough and he needed to borrow money. He'd tell me, he'll pay me back. He'll pay me back. And I insisted on him because I told people all the time, I'm hard with trusting people who are willing to pay me back when borrowing money because every time I do, they never do. His last act of charitable for me were two things. When my father tried to reach out to us again, as of recent, he wanted to talk to Nina. which is my brother's nickname, might I add. So, in case you need to know, Arjenti was hesitant, but they started bonding until it came to the point where my dad and him had another falling out, and he would call me and tell me, tell Michael Harris never to call me again. I'm done with him, and I'm like, fine, if that's what you want to do. My dad told me like I can't work on these complications with him anymore. I can't because every time he does, he gets mad at me, and I'm tired of that. So at one point, my dad, his last words to my brother's last words to him was he never wanted to talk to him again, which is the unfortunate thing that my father now has to be burdened with because of his actions of things. At the same time, for me, I told my brother I gave him one piece of advice because rarely he takes my advice. Rarely he does. I told my brother, you have been able to live on your own while still living with your mother-in-law, raise 4 children, stay in a marriage with your wife, be able to drive and do everything else without anything from his assistance. You were able to do that for the last 5, 6 to 10 years. At what point do you feel that you need any acknowledgement from our father? He said to me, you know what? You're absolutely right. I never thought this day would come that you're right, Raffinay. You're right. And it was a weird thing for me because I never got that acknowledgement from him. Ever. Ever. He would tell me at points, he was like, I never thought you were right. You're absolutely right. My dad made a lot of mistakes at times of it, and that's something he's going to have to learn to cope with. But when it comes to my brother's relationship with him, it was always rough. But it wasn't that in the beginning. He was the favorite child. My father was proud of my dad a lot. My dad was proud of my brother a lot of times over me. It was a rift that led to me self-expressing myself in a rebellious way that I am now. To some extent, that molded me who I am. And my father and I had a distant of a relationship because of it. I hate that I'm doing this, but I don't know if my brother texted it to me or not, but I do want to find it and see if he has it on the text phone of it. Um, I don't even remember. I never even kept his number at times because at times I would be so mad at him I wouldn't keep his number. No, I thought I had any text from him, but I guess not. I can't even look at his number now. But yeah, there was a moment he texted me and he was calling me. And he said, "Raffina, you're right. You're absolutely right." And then he would tell my mom, and my mom's like, "Did you say something to that boy?" I'm like, "What?" He's like, "Your brother is validating that you're right about something. You told him some things about the fact of dad, and he said you're right." He's like, "The first time ever, Raffine was right." And I'm like, "You even told our mother this?" Yes. The second thing he did was about a week ago. Since my mom is recently, at the moment, by the time this recording is done, she is uh, in rehabilitation for her physical therapy. And my brother and I would visit her. my brother and I visited her. At one point, he visited her. Um, he came to visit, surprises her with the kids. And my mom was so shocked because she's like, I didn't think you would bring the kids and all. He's like, yeah, sure. I wanted you to bring them. I figured you wanted to see them since you're in the hospital. My mom told him to go to the. Is there any chance you can go to the store and get some groceries, just for me, for her? And I said, yeah, sure. I told her, can I go with you, bruh? Yeah, sure. All right, I'll take you. I need to grab something. I need to grab some bread. We went to the Myers on Conant Street that we worked at over in Maumee, which was the one time me and him worked together. He would get the carts and I would get the carts. We were cart collectors and such. Unfortunately, we both would get fired because we both were apparently suspected of thievery. Me, a CD. My brother, some jewelry that he had misplaced at a place that he was buying for his wife. The loss prevention agent that basically got us both terminated uh, would end up be arrested for a federal crime of over $1 million worth of merchandise she would steal herself. And my brother and I laughed at each other, saying, "That's karma for your ass." And he said to this, he's like, "I should take her ass to court for that." And I told him, I said, "You should. She ruined your life as well as mine." My brother had a lot of faults. I said this before. He was not a flawless man, but none of us are. I feel God intended us never to be flawless because the only way that we're flawless is if we are in His image in more precise of His image. And the only person who's of perfection is His Son Jesus Christ. Whether you believe Him or not, if any of my listeners of non-religious out there, regardless of that, my brother unfortunately was not a God-fearing man. He grew out of his faith years later because of the misery of things that happen in all of our lives. So my only disappointment on the fact of my only hope is that God still takes and welcomes him in regardless of his faith. My only hope. Because I hate to see him be damned because of his fault and out of God. Because while I am still a person who believes and still holds together our Lord, I may not be able to go to church a lot. I may not be able to read the Bible a lot, but I do believe in that higher power. I've never lost it. it it's a different faith of a sense that compared to most people. And with what's going on in society with most of these churches, it's kind of understanding why. You understand why I'm not much of a committed to a church. But my brother was different. He grew his atheism, unfortunately, because of the spite of what we all had to deal with. There were moments I was jealous of him, jealous of his job, jealous of him having marriage and love, jealous of him having a lot of opportunities of many situations that I didn't get. But I was happy for him regardless of it. I remained happy. I continued to be happy for him because that was my brother. You only get one sibling, depending on one sibling you get at the same time. You know, at the same time of it, things are worse if anything happens in that. I look back at moments when we were living and staying together, when we lived and grew old together, we got older together. My plan was that once we both had done well in our entertainment careers, we would work together. I wanted to believe in his dreams as much as he wanted to believe partly in mine to some extent. And I still, to this day, want to make sure his memory, at least, gets more aspiration in the sense of it. It's why partly I also did Delta Nexus, the album. I wanted his involvement in it. I named it after him. And I said, I can't name this album without his blessing in it because he is a vital part of that. And he understood that. And he said to himself, fine, I'll do it. So read these lines. And that's what it was. It's the time I have to deal with the loss of him now, because I don't have anybody else I can attach myself to like him. There are many of my friends, male friends, there are male friends that I have had a brotherhood with, but none of them can muster up the brotherhood I've had with my literal brother. Hell, we were basically Al and Ed of Full Metal Alchemist, because I tell you right now, if it meant that any sorcery, I give up my arm for that boy, as well as put him in another body, if it meant to happen. It wouldn't be for our mother, because our mother is alive. The only thing would be for me to bring him back. That's what it would be. I feel like that was the case of it. He is Ed, I am Al. Hell, he literally has a tattoo of the character Scar. Scar's tattoo, he actually has it replicated, tatted on his arm. It took months for him to get it done, but it looked amazing on him. With the Star Wars logos of the Resistance and the Rebellion on both of his shoulders. It's what inspired my Donnie Darko tattoo. Because he had gotten his arm done, I got mine done. I so have to now try to be optimistic every time. I try so hard to. Y'all have no idea. It's the thing I had to learn in therapy. It's the thing I had to learn to live is optimism, because you don't know what will happen. It's and at the same time of that optimism, I live in fear, because every day since I've turned 40, every day I'm afraid of my life extinguish. The last few months within last year, I have seen more people around my age perish, and it terrifies me, because I don't know what the afterlife is like. I don't know what it feels like. I don't know what it seems like. I don't know what anyone can who's experienced it and has given a second chance to know what it's like. So I only wish I knew what it's like in the afterlife, so that I wouldn't be afraid of it. It's no different than when I live, if I'm drowning, and what it feels like drowning. And Lord knows I'm never going to experience that, because I have a common fear of that alone. So it terrifies me every day I wake up to every moment I'm sleeping, if I'm going to ever wake up. And knowing he's gone makes me feel like now I wish that I could not wake I wish I could wake up and it's just a dream that he is still alive. Cuz he didn't need to go. He didn't. And it was only his own situation of his own condition that led to this. His heart. And I have to live with every day on this earth knowing I can't call him, I can't text him, I can't tell him about his superhero, Superman. I can't tell him about the fact of the comic books that's coming out. I can't tell him about the new anime of One Piece coming out. I can't tell any of this to him like I can. I can't talk to my boys about this. Many of the male friends, I rarely have common relationships like this with them with. Unlike my brother. I don't have that anymore. Because he's gone. It hurts so fucking much. I want to scream at the top of my lungs to God, bring him back. And I can't do that. I can't. And it's like a part of me is gone. Because I can't say my brother's keeper. I can't. Because I have no brother now. And it's not that I don't disown him. It's the fact that God took him from me. And he took him too soon. And I can't smite him. I can't. Because if I do, I don't know how long I'll live left. So I'm terrified every waking moment. But I have to feel the guilt that I should have done more. I should have done more with him. I should have had moments. Every time he asked to talk to me, I should have talked to him. Every time he begged to ask me things, I should have said something to him. Every time I felt like he wanted to bring up stuff about me and he got mad at me, I should have not been mad at him. Every time he argued with me, I wish I didn't argue with him. Because I have to live with that now. It's the only guilt I have. When we went to that supermarket after seeing my mother, when we went to get groceries, I couldn't pay for a fucking loaf of bread. And he did the decent thing and paid for it for me. That was his last act before he died. And I have to live with that. Him charioting that. And when we went back to my mother's place at the Rehabilitation Center, he complimented my boots. And I told him I would give him the number of those boots because he would like them. I told him I paid money for them, but I would send him the number. And I didn't get to do that. And now I can't do that with him anymore. Because I don't have anybody else left like him. I was not like that with my sisters. I didn't live with him. I didn't share a bed like I did with him. I didn't play like I did with him. And I don't have anybody left. He was the only one I bonded with, even when we had fights, when we had arguments, when I got pissed at him whenever it came to him asking to borrow money or with his kids. He didn't even trust me much with his kids because of that, because of how distant I was with him. And now I have to look at his oldest son, who looks at me like another father figure, and tell him his dad's gone and I miss his daddy every day. And it's hard for me so much. It hurts so much. So much. I just wish he didn't go. I wish he didn't go so soon. I wish he would have told us about his condition. His heart failed with a torn aorta that was deteriorating time after time, and he didn't get it checked on. And my mother told him to go get it checked on, but he put that aside because he wanted to make sure his kids were fed. He wanted to make sure his kids were safe. He wanted to make sure his wife was okay to get to her job, for his kids to have time with their grandmother, their mummy. I have to see my mother, who's being the strong woman as she always is, tell me in the case of that her son is gone. And I had to look at her, I had to tell her I'm not going anywhere. I'm not, because I can't do that. But yet I gotta be there for her to bury her son. I may have had ups and downs with him, but I loved him. I loved him so much. That was my brother, my only brother. We were born from the same womb. It wasn't like my adopted sisters. It wasn't. We had something different. I remember telling him about the Mobile Suit Gundam store in Chicago, and he didn't know. He was surprised because he was always the knowledgeable one with Mobile Suit Gundams because he had his own set of Gunpla and such. And I told him, I said, yeah, there's a Gundam store. You need to go to it because it's cool. And he's like, oh, okay. He wanted to get into voice acting. When I told him I knew the network of people, of voice actors, including my friend Syrian, I told him, you know, you could always just come to me. He insisted no. He wanted to do his own self. My friends who were in the film industry, who were all in the film world, I told them, I know people. My roommate is friends with an indie filmmaker that's worked with people like Kaufman and such, and he insisted. He didn't want that help. He wanted to do it himself. And you want to know what I knew? What made me realize he wanted to do this again? We had talked a while back about his first play he performed in when he was in junior high. They did this montage of children's stories. Casey at the bat, the wolf and the warless and the carpenter. And there was one where he was dressed like Peter Pan, and I said in the camera, my dad was filming it on his home camera. I looked at the camera and I said, my brother should be called Brother Man Peter Pan. And he hated when I joked about that. But at the same time, it was funny. I wish he didn't go. And I feel so bad for his children, his 4 kids, his 2 little toddlers, and his 2 young oldest kids, including his son. Because I see myself in him, and now he's got to deal with just like. I used to hang out in his room while he was playing his games because there were moments where I couldn't play my games, and I would just hang out and see him playing his games. I would used to borrow his friends. He had the whole box set of the Friends TV show, and I would go in his room and borrow it without his permission, or his Clone Wars DVDs. He would get mad at me for it because he would tell me, "Why did you not just ask me?" And I'm like, "I'm sorry, I just needed to watch these episodes of Friends." He would get so mad at me for it. I love that boy so much. He was stupid sometimes, but I loved him so much because that was my brother. I have another brother, one that's 2 years older than me. He died from prenatal birth. His urn I carry with me in my room, only because my mother can't take him because of the fact that she's afraid of his urn being damaged. So I keep him with me, and now I have to tell him that my other brother is gone. And I only hope that Manlius, my older brother, is welcoming him in heaven. That's my only hope. I tried to mention this on TikTok, but I'll say it here. To all my viewers, my friends who have siblings, and if you've had any falling outs, petty falling outs with your siblings, dead that shit. Dead it the fuck right now because you never know if that person will be still alive for you to fix things. I don't care how small and trivial it is. I don't care if it's over a significant other. I don't care if it's over your father, your mother, or whatever. I don't fucking care. Dead that shit. Dead it immediately. Because you never know if your loved one, your sibling, your brother, your sister may not be with you again. Dead that shit. You don't want to have to deal with what I'm dealing with right now at 40. 40 hurt over the fucking loss of your brother. You don't want this. You don't want this pain. Because now I have to be the strong one. My brother had to help me a lot of times because I can't do a lot of things myself. Something as simple as driving, something as simple as that, I can't do that now. I don't have that capacity because of my disability. And now I have to rely on myself. I have to be the only son now left, the only child left to take care of my mother and to help everyone else. I have to be given this responsibility now. because at one point it was half me and half him. I have to burden this now myself, all myself. And it hurts because I can't do it alone. I can't call him up and have him help me at times when some things, or ask him anything question wise. I can't. I love that boy so much. And like I said, I regret times that I didn't tell him I love him. Don't go with what I go with. Cherish that sibling relationship you have if you still have it. And if it's petty and you don't have it, fix that shit and make it work. You don't want this pain. You don't. This hurts just as much as any other loved one. And unless you've ever experienced it and you've already had to deal with that, as I know you probably have. And to people out there who've already dealt with this situation like me, trust me, I know your pain now. My cousin Thelma lost her older brother, my cousin Twickenham, from drug use. And she regrets it every day. He was doing good for himself. He was clean, going through sober, going through everything, being right, and he died. And my cousin had to learn to live with that. My cousin Terrence had to live with that. Now I have to do the same thing for my brother because of my brother. My brother would want now for his kids to keep going for his honor. My brother would want his wife to be strong in his honor. He always put them over himself to the point his passing is what led to that complication because he was focused on his family more than himself and his own health. He died to help his family, and he can want that can continue. If you have any opportunity and chance of it, I provided a link to a GoFundMe that will help financially for his family. If it's still active, if you have any charitable contribution that you can do, please feel free to donate. In honor of my brother, I am in the process in the next few days to re-release my album Delta Nexus that I did in his honor that also features himself in the vocals for some of the interludes. It was the only project that he was able to contribute to vocally in my art, and I plan to re-release it in his honor. And proceeds of that will go to his family as well. That will also be a physical release as well that I will be releasing soon. And that album will be in his honor as well. And more about that will become soon. But if you like to contribute now, the album is available on my Bandcamp, which I have listed in my links on my alt links. I would suggest you check it out. Even if you're not a fan of my music, at least you can see the last moments of my brother's vocals and his work contributing into it, memory. Now that album means more to me than it was when it first happened. Again, by the time this video comes up, my brother's passing has happened. My brother has we have learned to give my brother a proper memory. And this video is a sentiment from me while I'm still alive to give him a memory. Because I want y'all to remember my brother in his good moments, his good days, his good contribution, his love, and my love with him. I will always love him. He's a shithead sometimes because he's my brother. I can't disown him. I can't disassociate with him. I can't dishonor him because he's half of me. We both came from the same person. We were 2 years apart. Now we're even more distant. And I have to keep that with me now every single day. With that being said, y'all, I hope you, at least to the positivity, take this. If there's any questions y'all have knowing about my brother, wanting to know of my brother, I'd be happy to share that any of you privately. I want him to be remembered. I want him to be loved. I want him to be honored. And everything I do from this day forward will be in his honor. I've already done it for my grandmother. I've done it for my aunts. I've done it for my uncle. But now my brother will be with them in heaven, and I will be able to have him be honored as well. My mother and myself, with his kids, are all that's left. And at the same time of it, I appreciate and I will cherish them even more now while I'm still breathing. And now also, this may also affect me in my health going forward because now I have to make sure I do everything I can to keep myself health in check because if I don't want to end up like him in his fate. So there may be moments that I will be getting a lot of medical treatments, a lot of medical things taken care of, a lot of things in my health regimen that will be changing, but for the better because I don't have excuses. I don't have a family of my own, kids and a wife. I'm alone. That makes this harder. And by myself on this situation, I can't do anything other than fixing myself. But I'm going to learn to go through this. I'm going to learn to live through this. I'm going to learn to be strong for him. I don't have the bigger brother, the bigger but younger brother to be next to me now. Because now it's just me. But again, I don't want you all to feel bad for me. But I want you to understand it's going to be hard for me. Because, again, me being the person who is known for being emotional in the sense of it, I am in the sense of very emotional because I'm a passionate guy. My brother and I both are compassionate men. Regardless of our girth, we are compassionate men. And what y'all need to know is men, it's okay to understand that emotion of it. It's okay to cry for your brother. So, in spirit, Arjenti, if you, Arjenti Harris, Nina, my brother, if you see this in spirit, I want you to know this. I loved you. I have always loved you. You were a shithead sometimes, but that's what brothers are. We hate each other, we love each other, but we go through it. We do what's necessary because we were all that's left for the sake of our mother. We were all that's left when it came to our father. We're all that's left. But now that you're gone and I have to do this on my own, I'm going to do the best for you. Everything I do is going to be for the best of your intentions. That movie that I'm working on, the script, now I know I have to finish it for your honor. In honor of you. Now I know I need to finish my projects that I had wanted to put forward in your name. Now I have to do. Now I have to keep going forward. Now I have to finish this dream because I have to do it in your honor. Because if I don't, it would be devastating to not do so. So for all of y'all out there who wanted to know my brother Arjenti Harris, just know he was a good man. And he was the best brother. A loving son, loving husband, loving father, but the best brother. If you have a sibling now and you still have love with them, cherish them. And if you don't, and you had a falling out and they're still alive, fix that shit. But I also send my love to anyone who has also dealt with the same loss like I have to a sibling of their own that they love. I hope y'all take this episode and this moment to reflect on that and to understand the cherish and the honor that I have with my brother. It's going to be hard for me, y'all. So I need all the strength, all the love, and all the support that I can get. The condolences can still be a thing, but at the same time, the strength and the love, the caring, compassion is all that's necessary for me to keep going. Thank y'all for listening. Love to each other. Love yourselves with it. And I'll see you soon.